question directly to our mayor. So let me just kick us off, maybe with a question just kind of broadly speaking. There's a lot of important work that you are talking about needing to get done. What do you think it's going to take for you, for council, and for the municipality to be successful?
Well, I would say two things. I think if we can really rally around that strategic plan that we're looking to tackle over the next few months, and we can have a unanimous decision of council to actually agree, that's important. Unanimous is important. To try to agree to that strategic plan. That then sets the stage for 4 years, because it enables us to say, this is what we're doing, and this is what we're not doing. So I think the strategic plan is one thing, but I would say the second thing to that is, where can we find partnerships outside of the city to help us implement that strategic plan? Because government can't do it all, and so is there businesses, is there stakeholders, is there other groups, individuals in the city that can actually help us achieve that strategic plan? I think those two things together will make, in 4 years, we'll look back and see that it was a success.
Thank you. Now you're talking about the strategic plan, and you mentioned how important it is for folks in the room and community at large to be engaged in that. So I'm going to ask you a community engagement question that we received.
Okay.
Some people feel disengaged and a little skeptical about the effectiveness of why, when, and how the city engages with different community stakeholders when making important decisions. There is currently an opportunity to provide the city with ideas on how to improve this relationship. Can you tell us what you believe should be considered to improve the community-municipality relationship?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, you know what? We're actually embarking on an update on our engagement processes at City Hall, and I think it really deserves that. One, because I think we could embrace other opportunities like technology and other options like that to embrace for better engagement. But I also think it gives us a good idea of, to be able to determine what has not been working, where are we missing some gaps to be able to fill some of that engagement opportunities. I think where we also are doing better, but we haven't in the past, is also with underrepresented groups in the city as well. I think we are now being more proactive in going out to groups instead of just saying, well, we put an advertisement online, or didn't you know a council meeting was happening next week? So instead of having the community have to try to come to us, we're trying to be more proactive to go to them, especially to unrepresented people and groups within the city, because their feedback is just as important as well. I think that the last thing I would suggest is, where there is suggestions that come into the city of Guelph from whoever, I think maybe we need to do a better job of explaining the answer as to why we might not be able to do something, or why we are. I think if that void is not there, if it's there, and people feel like their suggestions just weren't heard, they very well could have been heard when we decided not to do something or do something differently, but we're not giving that answer back to them, so they feel like they're not involved. So I think I would encourage everyone, just as I said in my speech, to be a part of the strategic plan, but to be a part of everything, and to keep us account, especially with the follow-up work.
Super, thank you. So just a couple weeks ago, you approved you confirmed the 2023 budget.
Yep.
Many folks who were there delegating. One question that we received around taxes was that the city is on track to have quite a healthy surplus in reserves, and curious why more of those funds were not utilized when the residential tax levy continues to grow.
Yeah, that's a fair question too. I think from a numbers point of view, we're looking, it's going to be confirmed in a few months, but we're probably looking at an almost $9 million surplus from just last year. One of the things that I will say is that for many years, actually, I think it's been about 7 years or more, we've been having surpluses. Not as high as that one, but we've been having some surpluses. Some of the surplus actually was used towards I'm sorry, not surplus, some of our reserves, where surplus goes into, was used to try to soften the blow of the overall increase in the budget. Some of the projects that we have, especially around corporate asset management, is like the stuff that just needs to get done all the time in the city, like the roads and the bridges and the potholes and the pipes in the ground, the assets that we need to make sure that we're taking care of. Some of those things need to have more funding. So I do know that most of the time when there is any type of surpluses, we need to make sure we're moving a large portion of that into those projects the things that often we get complaints about. Why is this road not, been redone, things like that. So those projects need to be funded, and especially with the inflation issues that we are having in the community, it's hit your businesses, it's hit you in your own personal pocketbook, it affects the city as well. And so we need to make sure that we're being financially responsible to have those funds available for all those impacts of inflation that are happening with the infrastructure work that we have to do. So there is some use by reserves, which is usually funded a lot by surpluses, to try to keep things balanced. But in an unknown sort of area that we're in right now with inflationary pressures, I think it's prudent to make sure we have that money available. If we don't use that money, we can maybe think about using it in a different way another time. But it certainly would be terrible to use it all and lower it a little bit and then hit you even harder the next year and the next year and the next year.
Thank you. I'm going to pause and just see if anyone in the room has a question to ask. I've got many more, but a question at the very back.
First of all, I do want to acknowledge the formal vote on State of the City brunch. I think for all of you. But my question is, we're talking a lot about the upcoming strategic plan, and I know that the city is phenomenal at advocating and embedding the social good sector into the city's framework. So I'm just curious, how are you going to continue that process as you're prepping and kind of ramping up our stuff? I'm hearing a lot about homelessness, which is really great, but we know that there's a lot of other social issues happening in our community. So how do you plan on kind of bringing the social good sector along for the ride in your truck?
Well, thank you for the question. So for anyone that didn't hear, it was like during the strategic plan, is there an opportunity for sort of the social good, stakeholders and agencies in the community to also make sure that that voice is embedded as we go forward? Well, guess what? You just got it embedded. There you go. You just did a good job. I would just say that our engagement staff and our executive team is here. They've heard that. Many of the councillors are here. We heard that. So that will probably have to be one of the pillars that we have in our strategic plan moving forward. It does already kind of fit in one of our strategic plans. We're actually calling this a refresh. We're not completely tearing the whole house down. So it's a refresh of the pillars of our strategic plan. And yeah, that's going to have to be a part of it. If I went back, if I just for a second go back to the first question I answered, I said the strategic plan, but it's also going to need partners. The social good partners, such as yourself and others that are in this room, we definitely need to figure out how can you be involved to make our strategic plan good for the whole city, which you're already doing, but maybe it needs to have more of a focus on it. I appreciate you asking it.
Great question, Anna. Thank you. Any others?
Hello, my name is Latif. Just before I ask my question, just want to say phenomenal speech, very eloquent. A huge fan of Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I forgot the name, sorry.
That's okay. I've been called worse. But you should stop there, probably just sit there.
Sorry, Mayor Cam.
Yeah, Mayor Cam. Mayor Cam's fine, yeah.
One topic you mentioned during your speech was about the increasing of the price of single bedroom rooms
Yes.
in apartments, $1,000, $900,
Yep.
$2,000 for a whole basement apartment.
Sure.
And that hit me quite hard because I'm a student at the University of Guelph myself. Second, third year,
Yeah.
you don't get much options finding affordable housing and rather good quality ones.
Yep.
So what do you think is the solution to this issue? How can we fix this issue in the future?
Well, thank you for asking that. Thank you. Thank you for being here a student at the University of Guelph. That's great. I always say when I meet students from the University of Guelph, never leave. All right, we want you to stay here. So that's great. The easiest answer is supply. We need to have more supply so that it creates more choice, so that there's competition, and then hopefully the rents will go down. Now, we as a council and a city, we need to start making sure that we say yes to especially student purpose-built type of projects. That would be my opinion. But I do know that the University of Guelph, I don't want to speak for them, but they've also got housing plans in the works as well. And they have a role to play as well. And so it's not just on the city, it's also on the university as well to help with that. And we have a great partnership with them to be able to look at that. I would also say, if there are landlords here, that it would be very nice to actually hear about a student's struggles just like we just did. This is very real. And the struggle isn't just for them, but it's for often parents that are trying to figure out how to pay for their kids to be able to go and get the university education or college education that they're looking for. And if there is ways that you can help landlords and not having to have that price go up, please do it. Yeah, I think it would be an honorable thing to do if you can. But really, I come back to my first answer. We need more supply.
Great question, Latif. Thank you. I'm going to push you a little bit on that one,
Okay.
Mayor Cam, and say, how are you encouraging and promoting the development of housing, our aims at meeting these new targets that we are responsible for? You're talking about supply. We've got our friends in Fusion in the room who are looking to build. What's the vision on how to actually get this done as it relates to your seat at council and with your fellow councillors? How are we going to get this done?
Yeah, so I think that is a very, very good question. So a lot of what I think needs to happen is really rallying around a combined plan of agreement of council, staff, and the development community. I think it's like a three-legged stool. And I think if one of them is not there, it's going to fall over. So I think there has to be equal and shared leadership across all of us. And I think we can do it. So as an example, I said this in my speech, we do have to make a pledge. The province is requiring us to make a pledge by law, by March, for 18,000 new units by 2031. That's like 2,000 a year. So we need to make sure that when we do that pledge, which is going to be coming to council this month, we need to make sure that we actually abide by it and hold ourselves to account for that. At the same time, a partnership with the development community on how they can get those shovels in the ground, because we can only approve. We don't build. We approve, we don't build. So we need to make sure that they can do that as well. We have to get it. It is a crisis. I don't know why. I don't know why I continue to hear some people say that it's not a big deal. It's so frustrating to me. The student that just stood up here. Did you see the picture that went viral around our city a couple weeks ago? It was about 50 kids deep at one house trying to get a room. Like, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable in this city to have this type of a housing crisis. So we need to probably have some uncomfortable conversations where we agree to say, we've just got to say yes to the things that are going to work, and we've got to move faster. And in fact, I know engagement is important to this community. I'm not saying we should ever skip the necessary steps of engagement. But if we have ways of getting things to approval faster, and we can still accommodate the legislative requirements that are needed, we need to do those things. And finally, I would say this. If we can delegate, if council can delegate authority to staff to be able to say yes to things without it having to come to council, I think we should embrace as much of that as we possibly can.
Scott Stewart, you hear that? Any other questions from the room? Court.
Morning, everybody. Just touching on developments. In our city, we have things that are already developed, houses that are there, and building on infrastructure, and looking at, when we look at new developments, they take time to get people housed. With existing homes, we have the opportunity to turn them into duplexes or basement apartments.
3 units.
You get affordability, variable interest rates, everything else for a homeowner that are all facing right now. I think there's a huge opportunity to utilize existing spaces.
Yep.
And talking to homeowners and everything else, there's a point where we're taking more inventory off the market than putting onto the market through places being deemed as maybe illegal basement apartments and everything else. It became very difficult to deal with the city. And so kind of my ask is, can the city act more of coaches as opposed to more referees?
Yep.
The development of these projects to help homeowners opportunity there to provide grants or to use things that we can expedite quickly. There's a ton of space out there that's already existing. A lot of people in homes, there's like 2 people living in a 4-bedroom home. We have the inventory there, and I think looking at it a little bit differently and encouraging people to use existing infrastructure is key to solving this housing crisis.
Yeah, well, I would agree on that statement. And for the question in there, I think this is a good opportunity for me to maybe just bring people up to speed. We do about 250 to 300 basement apartments a year in this city. We're one of the top in Ontario, and it doesn't even have to come to council at all. So from a perspective of can we be more helpful, I don't know how much more helpful we can be. It doesn't have to come to council, and we're doing 250 to 300 of them a year. Now some of them that are not registered apartments, there's a reason for that, and that's health and safety of the tenants that are going to be living in there. We have a regulatory role to play to make sure that they are safe and done in a proper way, so that we're making sure that people, have a place that's live and comfortable for them, but safe. And then I would say that our draft zoning bylaw that came last year is going to be automatically doing what the province is wanting us to do now, which is 3 units. Now I suggested 4. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge to my council colleagues. Okay, yeah, thank you for clapping. So I believe the fact that you can have a unit as like an upstairs, you can have a basement apartment as a second unit, okay? Then you can have like a tiny home in your backyard. In 2022, we had, I think, between 6 to 10 starts of permits on tiny homes in the backyard now. So those are all coming online, and they are as of right. They don't have to come to council. So when it comes to these types of opportunities for your existing home in existing neighborhoods, where you're right, where the existing infrastructure is, we are already hands off. And I know our staff are doing their very best. When it comes to the money that I talked about in my speech, that went to the building department. I know that's not just for planners and such, it will also be for inspectors and other things to try to make those processes go faster too.
Thanks.
But you are right, building and infill, the infrastructure is already there, absolutely.
And I think we hear loud and clear what you're also saying about the experience and the culture and the engagement of getting this done and how that needs to continue to improve. And I think we've heard loud and clear that the city is doing that work to learn more about what that needs to look and feel like. So thank you for the question and the comment. Any other questions from the floor? Susan?
Mark. Yes, Susan.
I have a question. So for at least 20 years, the city have successfully been able to aid in downtown development or development in our core through brownfield grants.
Mm-hmm.
With downtown being one of our biggest issues and housing being another issue, how is the city going to support or continue to support infill developments or development in the downtown if there are no more brownfield grants?
Yeah, thank you. So two answers on that. The first one is, and I'm looking at my friends down below here.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, it is crazy to me, especially that the provincial government does not give grants to cities with brownfields to clean up. So we're in a housing crisis. Cities usually have land that is brownfield that needs to be cleaned up. But they are millions and millions of dollars. If the province wants to get housing built near infrastructure that's already existing, give us the money to clean up the land, you win everywhere on that. You get a brownfield that is no longer an environmental problem and that's cleaned up. You get housing for people to live, and it's around the amenities that already exist for a community. It's perfect. So we have to continue to advocate for that type of stuff from upper levels of government. That's number one. Number two, this is where I might need to get a little bit of a nod from staff. I believe we are looking at resurrecting some of the grants. Yes, I'm right. At some of those grants. So that report will be coming, I'm sure, to council. And again, your feedback on something like that would be very helpful. Because yes, they work for sure. Where a site is a problem, And we need to give incentives to have those sites turned into an underperforming asset, turning into a performing asset. I'm all for that. And so we need to figure out how we can do that. But it shouldn't just be on the city though. Upper levels of government have a role to play as well.
Thank you. Marva?
Good morning, Mayor Guthrie. I just want to, excellent speech. I want to say that to start.
Thank you.
I have a question, and I have a comment, and maybe a plug.
Okay. Do you want to come up here?
No, not at all. I certainly would like to plug the community plan in this room.
Mhm.
And the community plan that is, the city has undertaken to support a lot of the work that we need to do as a community to maintain a caring community, to enhance a caring community, and I think work that can underpin how we relate to each other in some of these more difficult issues that we're talking about at Issue.
Yep.
Whether it is the unhoused, or whether we're talking about transportation issues, or even some of the tax issues, or the NIMBY issue, or YIMBY that you have coined that phrase right now. And the plan is intended for us to really recognize that our demographics is shifting. And we need to find a place of belonging for every single person that comes into Guelph, that calls Guelph home, whether you were born here, or you're a new immigrant, or you're moving from another municipality to the city of Guelph. And so I just encourage folks to go to have your say, and wanted to know if the mayor can comment on that and how that relates to the strategic plan.
Yeah.
Ever so briefly. Thank you.
No, Marva, Marva's absolutely right. In fact, we have sort of a structure or a flow chart, if you could say, in regards to the strategic plan. But what's above the strategic plan is the community plan. That is the thing that underpins or starts everything that we have for our strategic plan in the city of Guelph, exactly as Marva just described. And so you're right. Go and check that out. That was about almost 2 years of engagement. I think there was over 11,000 engagement opportunities with the city that informed what our community plan is, what our community is looking for. But it is a living and breathing document. In fact, it's the document that council never approved. Why? Because, on purpose, because it's not ours. It's the community's. We received it, but we never approved it, because it's a living document that can be changed. And it has been changed already. It was done 4 years ago or so. It's already been changed a few times in between to react to the things that our community needs. And so Marva is absolutely right. If you want to help engage with the strategic plan, you almost got to start with the community plan first and get your grounding in that to inform the strategic plan as we move forward. Absolutely. And can I just say one more thing? Sorry, you made such a good point about like immigration, refugees that are coming to our community, and I just want to tie that in for a second to housing, because one of the concerns myself and other mayors have across the province from our own local plans is we're not diversifying our housing units as much as I think we need to be doing. What we're in some cases saying, not on purpose, is welcome to Canada, welcome to Ontario, welcome to Guelph with you and your family. Go live in this tiny house in the backyard. That's not right. We need to diversify our units, not just for immigration and refugee situations, but for everyone. We can't have the 18,000 unit count that we got to pledge to the government with basement apartments and tiny homes. We have to have the proper mix, especially for families and growing families. Why? If we don't do that, they're going to go. They're going to leave. And then we'll lose that skill set that we need in our community. So as we develop the housing plans that we need in the city, it's got to be right for the diversification of the types of unit sizes that we need in our community. Sorry.
At the back.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Zoe Ross with Exhibitionist, Guelph Art and Culture Magazine. I appreciate the depth of talking about the wide range of needs in the city, including housing crisis, and I really admired the speech that you gave today. My question for you is, could you
thank you for asking that. I am excited to answer that one. Because I want to have a drum festival. No, I'm just kidding. Why is there only one person here? Free earplugs. Anyways, mine went there already. So we, for several years, we've been kind of toying around the edges of like, what is Guelph really good at, especially when it comes to tourism? And it has been very clearly determined. Sports tourism, and arts, festivals, culture. Those are it. And with the new mat tax that we have, that $700,000 to $800,000 coming in, that can start to go exactly towards the types of things that you just discussed. But also, we received a grant just recently to help us really define both the sports and cultural sort of trajectory that our city is going to be on. And I believe that report's going to be coming soon-ish. Okay, so that's coming this year as well in 2023. And so that's an opportunity for us to really make sure that we're embracing exactly what you just said, the arts and culture aspect of our community. Because you're right, a lot of people do come to this community for that. And they stay, or they come and they visit as well. I would also just say, maybe a little bit of a plug, but previous councillor James Gordon and myself, we really made it a big deal about trying to become a Music City Canada, sort of Music City type of engaged community where we are really trying to embrace that within our community. And that was acknowledged by staff as a takeaway through the cultural and updated sports, tourism discussions that are happening at the table right now. So expect some probably good news in the future for that, for sure.
Good question, thank you. Michael?
Thanks. I just want to push a little bit on what I see as a contradiction or a discontinuity between the real challenges, some might even say poly crisis going on right now, and the action or what are you going to do different? How are you going to transform the way that the city works, the partnerships you're talking about? There just seems to be a disconnect to me between, well, we're going to have a strategic plan, it's just going to be a refresh. How are you going to really drive that kind of change if you're not going to do things radically different to really step up and address these challenges? So, I'm being a little bit provocative, but I do see a
No, you're not being provocative. No, I think you caught an angle that actually should be addressed. I actually appreciate you saying that. So the question kind of was, hey, if you're going to make some drastic changes to deal with the crisis that we have, can you just kind of go along with the same old status quo, a little type around the edges, refresh? Why aren't you making some drastic changes? That's totally a fair question. Actually, I appreciate you bringing that up. So I'll tell you right now, I'm up for drastic changes. But the drastic changes can still be housed within the existing pillars of our strategic plan. Okay, so I think that's what I meant by refresh. So there are probably some areas, I think I gave the example of we're not tearing the whole house down to try to rebuild. Oh, there are some areas where I would love to tear some stuff down. Give me the sledgehammer, for sure. Okay, but it will take all of council to agree with that. So we're going to have to see if council agrees with where we actually renovate that strategic plan. And I think I gave some examples as an idea. What can council get out of where it's delegated authority to staff that they can just go ahead so we can get more housing built as an example? And that's a pretty tearing down moment right there. But how comfortable is our community going to be with that? How comfortable is council going to be with that? I know I'd be comfortable with it because I trust staff. I trust them. If we give them the parameters around their delegated authority, they should be able to just go ahead and get stuff done. So I think there are some elements, you are right to raise it, where we do need the sledgehammer to come out and change some things. I will say that our KPIs are now being put online publicly for everyone to see. That's a kind of a new cultural shift over the last couple of years. So we can be held to more account around the things that we're promising to try to do. I think especially with housing, the 18,000 pledge that's coming forward, there's going to be accountability built into that, for sure. So there is ways, I think, of making us being held to that account. without having to tear everything down, but yes, certain areas I think we should tear down. 100%.
Thank you, good question. I'm gonna move us a little bit to, we talked a little bit about housing and residential land.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the city, or what your vision is in adjusting to the future of work and meeting business needs as it relates to employment lands and commercial development?
Yeah, so that's really come in the last few years, hybrid workplaces, and people were in lots of policy changes, not just in government, but in the private sector as well, about work from home. And I think that is going to translate into conversations around different types of zoning within the city where that is allowed. I think it's going to be, not allowed, but make it easier, if I should say it that way. Even parking requirements, should they be as high as they need to be for certain things to function as much as they need to be, because now people might be working from home. I am concerned a little bit with the downtown core, especially if I could say that, how so many people are not working there, that sometimes the economic development and vitality of our downtown is so important, but with so many people not working in the downtown anymore, at office centers and things like that, those little shops, Mo, the hot dog guy, isn't getting as much sales, right? So I'm concerned about those things, but I think it really is an opportunity for us to make sure from a zoning perspective. I'll give you an example, actually. During the draft zoning bylaw update that we got last year, I made it a point to say in tiny homes, why can't somebody have a small-based business to a certain criteria or to a certain degree, that they can actually do that out of their tiny home? We should be encouraging more people to be able to do that type of work from the place where they live. And so this is a multifaceted sort of answer, but we need to start thinking about sort of the new way people are doing work, and government being more of a coach and not a referee on this type of stuff. And trust the community to do the things that they need to do to get their business and their work-life balance done properly.
Great. Any final questions from the floor?
Just one right here.
This might be a difficult question to answer.
Oh, good. Say the difficult one to last.
Politics can be very divisive. How is it that you work to get council to work together in the decision making?
Yeah. So the question was how like council to work together in the decision making. So here's the reality. The reality is, like 98% of the time, they're unanimous votes. Seriously, they are. It's like 2%. It's usually having to do with money. Okay? Have to do with, how much a project's gonna cost or how much a budget is gonna be. But most of the time, we are very aligned on the goals that we're trying to do. And here's the other part I would say, is that, and I've had to learn this. I'll put my hand up first, okay? I've had to learn this over the years. Once a vote is done, just let it go. Just let it go, because guess what? There's 100 more things we gotta tackle. So if you're on the winning side or the losing side, you gotta kind of mature up a little bit and let it go, because there's another problem tomorrow. And we gotta try to help the community with whatever that problem is. Speaking in advance together, which I think we've been doing very well, especially this term, I would say. My opinion is this term we're speaking very well in advance to decisions. We're hearing each other out and we're compromising where need be. I mean, that's what the community wants too, right? I mean, the community wants to see that in the leadership that they've elected to bring to City Hall. So I try to portray that. I hope my council mates would say, yeah, he was maybe a little bit of an idiot a few years ago, but he's a little bit better now, So, happy. Thank you, Gavin. Councilor down to Ward 5, everybody. So yeah, you know what? I think that tone starts from the top. Tone starts from the top, and I hope that I portray that with my council colleagues. I hope I do. If I don't, I hope they tell me respectfully and not on social media.
That was an excellent question. Thank you. And you're right. I think as a community, we count on our leaders to build consensus, to be engaged and authentic in their decision making, and work for the greatest good for all of us. So thank you so much, Cam, for your time, for these questions. Thank you to everyone. I really appreciate it. I'm going to welcome our closing presentation. But again, big thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate it.
Opportunity. I hope that it was insightful for all of you, and a heads up about what to expect from Cam and the municipality over the next year or so. I'd now like to welcome Dr. Charlotte Yates from the University of Guelph, who will provide today's closing remarks. Dr. Yates began her career at the University of Guelph in 2015 when she was recruited to serve as the university's provost and vice president academic. Since 2020, she's been serving as president and vice chancellor. Please welcome President Yates.
Good morning, everyone, and as is usually the case, our mayor is a very hard act to follow. Great sense of humor, sense of purpose, and I think this morning the serious tone was appropriate. We're facing a really challenging time going into 2023, and what gives me a lot of hope is that all the people here, we're a crowded room, and everyone here can have an impact on how that 2023 turns out. Each and every one of us, on what we do, how we do it, who we engage with, and how we mobilize the community to solve those big problems. It gives me a lot of hope that we have so many people invested in that journey. So let me start by saying thank you to Shakiba for the introduction, but also for a very special thanks to you and your team for organizing this event. Think about last year it was smaller, and Cam Guthrie got me hooked on Wordle, which I'd never heard of before. But now, and you think 2 years ago, we didn't have this. So we've come an incredible way, and sometimes it's easy to forget the incredible difficult time we've come through. So I want to just say thanks to the Chamber, but also to Mayor Guthrie. You provided exceptional remarks, and for your leadership of the city, and for your deep collaboration. I must say, I feel that when you collaborate, you can really move mountains. And I want to say that Cam and I speak often, and I think that bodes well for us in the next few years. And I always look forward to this event. I see people who I otherwise may not see, and I hear, of course, of the goals, the aspirations, but also the incredible sense of community we have within the city of Guelph. And I do believe that there's a very prosperous future for the city, notwithstanding the challenges we face. And I couldn't help but think how well the goals and aspirations, but also the challenges articulated by you through your remarks, very much align with those faced by the university, but also the strategic goals of the university. And of course, working with all of you to achieve those goals. And I also thought, those Q&A I started to reflect on, we all would. The university is a public forum, just like the city, and so we get lots of those tough questions, and I think you're a model. I was writing my notes as to, so if you hear your remarks repeated somewhere, you know I'm completely plagiarizing them. Which of course is something we cannot do. But also, let me just take this moment just to reflect a little bit on the opportunities, but also the way in which the University of Guelph works with the community, and I hope builds a better community. And a very supportive and welcoming community. And I thank you, Marva, because many of the students who join us do stay here. Many of them are international students who want to make their home here in Canada and in Guelph. And we have a role to play in working with you to welcome them. And we're producing those graduates who many of you hire. One of the big challenges in Canada is a labor shortage, skilled labor shortage. And the University of Guelph, I will say very proudly, it's not my job, it's all of the faculty and the staff produce amazing graduates, very skilled, they work in teams, they're good communicators, and I'm incredibly proud of the work that we do. So you also welcome the students. You welcome them into your homes, you welcome them into your businesses. I know we have a $2 billion impact on the economy, but also many of you make that difference. You hire our students for that part-time job or for that internship. You open the door, but you also help acculturate them to what it means to work, to be part of a community, and of course, have that sense of engagement and personal commitment to a community, in this case, the city of Guelph. So that it's not just in the classroom they learn in the entire community. And I want to say thank you for all of those opportunities, the volunteer opportunities you provide, as our mission at the University of Guelph is not just for someone to get their degree, to produce good citizens, civic-minded individuals who engage in the community, care about their neighbors in that broadest sense of the word, but also you help them grow as individuals. If you think all of us, most of us, you think when we start our education, we're 18, we're barely beyond childhood, and yet suddenly we leap into this world, guided by all of you. It means that there's much greater success for them, but also for all of us. And I do want to say, though, I do want to speak a little bit more, though, about an issue you raised, Cam, and one that is very, very important to the university, and this is about mental health. Mental health challenges have accelerated since the beginning of COVID. We already struggle with it as a society to provide the kind and the level of services and supports we needed. Whether it be somebody, as you mentioned, with drug addiction, loneliness is a growing problem in our society. More people live alone. People are lonely. We struggle with mental health, stress. Most of us, through a friend or family member, have been impacted by severe mental health and struggle to help that person to find the kind of supports to be able to become productive and happier members of our community. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit. And we were very fortunate this week. We were joined by Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of Colleges and Universities, MPP Pierre. She came to visit our campus to really focus on what were we doing in mental health and well-being, particularly focused on our students. You know, we have about 26,000 students on our campus. We're like a small city ourselves. So, and they're at the most vulnerable point in their lives to struggle with some of those early mental health challenges. And we had a really great conversation, and I will say I was very proud that she happened to arrive at the very moment where we just announced a new task force going to be reporting to me by the end of the summer, a task force on how we improve our mental health services for students, how we make sure that we live up to what is one of our new strategic goals, and that is to provide the best, to be the best in Canada in terms of universities providing mental health services and supports to our students and to their circle of care, because mental health support doesn't just happen for the individual. It requires that all of that person's circle of care be guided in that process. Mental health, as we know, is a very, very complex set of problems. And there are many experiences that shape people's mental health, good health and bad health. And these last 2 years, I will say, have presented our students with incredible challenges. Speaking to our students, and I would drop in on courses online, often where faculty would provide them with an opportunity to speak about their experiences as a student during COVID. Living in a basement all on their own, no family, no real friends around, the isolation, the loneliness, and university is stressful. You leave home and you're expected to perform in ways that you weren't expected to. And high school, you also have to figure out life. I mean, how many of us remember how difficult it was? Shopping, looking after, laundry, all of this where you had some family often support or extended family. Suddenly you're doing it on your own. students were really struggling, and I heard this very, very loud and clear, and it took a toll on the mental health of our students. And as a result, we've seen a dramatic increase in the demand for mental health supports on our campus. And so for that reason, we have made this a major priority for the university going forth, and I hope that with you, we can make an impact on our young people, but also we're integrated with the broader healthcare service of the city. This is not a University of Guelph issue. Any of you involved in the provision of community services, healthcare services, know that our students also are integrated into community mental health services. So we need this to be a joint and an integrated collaborative affair. And I want to call out one program in particular, which is a collaborative mental health first approach, and it's called IMPACT, the Integrated Mobile Police and Crisis Team that was developed obviously with our local police, and it brings together Canadian Mental Health Association, Waterloo Wellington, Guelph Police, as well as university as partners in responding to the mental health crisis facing our community. IMPACT provides a collaborative, immediate, and comprehensive crisis response for individuals undergoing a mental health crisis. Under this program, a year ago, we started to embed a dedicated mental health professional alongside campus safety police officers to help with crisis calls. So far, as a result of that, in other words, think about you are in a crisis, you have a friend who's in a crisis, and the person who responds is a police officer. That can be very unsettling. Whereas if they come with a mental health support, it diffuses, it allows us to direct them to the appropriate resources they need. And as a result, we've seen a significant drop in the need for a police response or to send individuals to our local hospital. Under the IMPACT program, the city has seen similar results. This is just one way in which a mental health first approach, which is integrated with our community but thinks in a holistic way, can make a difference to our community and the individuals within it. We're very, very proud to partner with CMHA, Waterloo Wellington, and Guelph Police in this work, and we welcome other opportunities to come together to achieve our shared goals to support the health and well-being of our community. Our doors are open, and I encourage you to reach out, see how you might be able to work with us in solving some of the challenges facing us, including the housing issue. It is a big issue for us, and it's one we will tackle with you. We have so many faculty, students, and experts who are eager to work with you collaboratively and make a difference. So as we conclude, I want to take a moment to acknowledge all of the sponsors for today's events. Electra, RBC, Royal Bank, Bell, Fusion Homes, which particularly appropriate given the conversation around housing, Enbridge, Delta Guelph, where we are each year, and the University of Guelph. And thank you, a big thank to today's title sponsor, CN Rail. I want to thank you, Shakiba. You've done a wonderful job, and you continue to do a wonderful job as the head of the Chamber of Commerce. We're so fortunate to have you. So thank you. Thank you, everyone, for listening to me today about a project that we're so passionate about, and for building such a vibrant and wonderful community. Thank you, Cam. Thank you, Council. Thank you.